Hello, namaste, and welcome to Agile Exploration Hub. I am your host, Nagesh Deshpande. So, to speak on this episode, we have a new speaker, Ashwini Subramanyam. She is from Pune, and we are going to discuss on Agile values and principles. So, if you ask me why should you watch this episode, so many professionals we memorize these Agile values and principles, but in reality, when we go into the project, we don't see those being used. We feel that those are actually used, but we feel that it is not being valued enough there. So in this episode, Ashwini, who is a PMP certified project manager, explains us the agile principles really mean in enterprise IT, in today's IT. You will learn how these values impacted decisions, leadership trust, and career growth as well. So if you're confused, if you're not sure what exactly we need to do, watch this episode till the end, like the video, subscribe to my channel, and without wasting much time, let's welcome Ashwini. Hey, let's welcome Ashwini. Hey, hi Ashwini.
Hi Nagesh,
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you? Thanks
I'm
for the
good.
introduction.
Yeah. So welcome to Agile Exploration Hub.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we recently got connected, Ashwini and me, and then we're talking about lot of things, and then Ashwini proposed this topic to discuss. So we said, let's go ahead and do this discussion then. So Ashwini, we are reading this Agile Manifesto, values, principles from years now. Yeah. But like how this Agile Manifesto really feel disconnected from the real projects. What are the symptoms? What are the signs?
Okay, so what are the symptoms and what are the signs? So, how does it disconnected? To start with, first we need to know
Hmm.
the basics of Agile Manifesto, right? So, what
Right,
happens in the Agile Manifesto? So, there are basic things that we get connected and say about the Agile Manifesto. One is this individuals and interactions are there, and then working software. We talk about working software, and then we talk about customer collaboration, and then we talk about responding to change. So what happens in agile world, in the current agile world? See, whatever we are insisting on, it is too much of insisting, and sometimes it is too agile, and sometimes it is waterfall into agile, right?
right,
So individuals and interactions. So agile manifesto says you need to interact a lot with people. So, but
right,
what happens in the real world? So there are a lot of MNCs which is globally spread across, and it is geographically distributed as well, right? So
right,
in that case, how does the individuals interact? So even we connect on Zoom, we have connected on Zoom, and
right,
whatever meetings are there, I mean, it is spread across the time zones, and we connect over either Zoom, Teams, and everything. So that is a major disconnect. So that is where we have to see how Agile is going to help. And one more thing, it is like working software, right? So what happens in the working software? We connect. We generally discuss with the team members. We discuss with the product owner. But does the product owner really discuss with the customer? Is a major problem, right? So
right,
the product owner will tell his own opinions or her own opinions, but the product owner, does he connect with the customer day in and day out basis? That is a question mark again, right? And then responding to change, how fast we respond to change. Agile says we have to respond to change, but what happens in a sprint, or what happens, suppose many projects right now, and right now in the sense, even what the project that I'm working on, they
mm,
do have a roadmap for a year. So that
right,
is not agile, right? So we are working waterfall in agile. So that is
right,
really not agile. We agile says responding to change. That means how we are able to respond to a change. So in that case, starting from the leadership level, that mindset should come into us so that we
Right.
are able to actually respond to a change, right? So when a change comes, the leadership just they are not able to focus on the change. What they say, why the goals are not achieved, why we
Hmm.
didn't estimate it. The Scrum Guide doesn't even talk about estimation.
Agree. Yes.
So in that case, how we are able to manage that change? We have to talk to the team members, and then the team members should also talk to the leadership. The transparency. So in this manifesto itself, there are so many things that comes. The main pillars, right? The transparency, the inspection and adaptation. So everything goes for a toss when the leadership asks this question: why we didn't achieve the goals? So when we are coming to or when we come to a point that, boss, this is how it happens, the leadership doesn't come to a conclusion that, okay, we didn't expect that change, right? So there are so many things when we talk about that, but the agreement is still not, I mean, they are not able to agree to that. So
Right.
these are all so many disconnects in the Agile Manifesto.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, so rightly mentioned, one of the points that you mentioned, estimations are never mentioned or anywhere mentioned in the Agile Manifesto or Scrum Guide, you know. But still, there are plenty things like story points, velocity in terms of story points. It is nowhere mentioned. We are still chasing the velocity, and we're still talking today about how to increase the velocity. Wow, why there is working software, why we are not focusing on working software. All these questions we need to ask to ourselves, and then find the answers by ourselves only. But again, like you rightly mentioned, there are MNCs, big MNCs and all that. And how does this big MNC misinterpret the agile value daily?
Okay, I'll come to that, but since you mentioned about velocity, the teams which I'm working on, which I had worked on previously, velocity, it's a big myth. Okay,
Right.
velocity, they don't think it as a metric.
Hmm.
It is just like appraisals and everything, right? You just compare the teams, which is
Right.
absolutely, I don't want to tell anything, but still, it is meaningless.
Yeah, yes,
Comparing
absolutely.
velocity, comparing, I mean, you are working on few things in the goals, and then you compare this sprint with the previous sprint. How is it even realistic, right? To compare the velocity, it is just a metric.
Right,
That
right.
is what I'm telling. That coaching should come, and we should insist that we should just put it in the minds of our leadership. Even if the agile coaches like me and like you, we just try to, coach and even mentor the leadership. That mindset has still not come to the leadership. That is what I have to say.
Right. We must coach leadership. Agree. Absolutely agree. Coming back to our
Yeah.
agile values being misunderstood daily. So how how do you what is your views on that?
Yeah, so agile value. So one thing that we come across, right? So Scrum teams. So do you run the daily stand up? Yes, we
Yes,
run daily stand up. How do you run the daily stand up? We use Jira.
we
So
use you.
when we use Jira, we are automatically Scrum, right? Oh God, that is a myth, right?
Yeah.
So when we use whatever the teams, I was just trying to transition from one team to another team, and then I was talking to a lead like, what are the principles you use, how does a scrum run in your team? It's like, Ashwini, don't worry, we use Jira. Boss, that is not Scrum. How do you measure your progress, right? How do you measure your progress? How the sprint reviews are happening? In one of the project which I'm actually was like, I was transitioning from waterfall to Scrum in one of the project, and the other was like kind of a new setup where we are migrating from one thing to another team. The program manager told Ashwini, we are like quite okay with the setup and everything. Don't run the retrospective now. Right? Don't run the retrospective. How does it even happen? Anyways, we are using Jira, then we are so called scrum teams, and you don't even want to run this retrospective, which is a key ceremony, right? So this
Right,
is
right,
again a misinterpretation. How do we even know what the team members are thinking? Are we even passing the vision of what we are going to achieve in this project? No, right? Roadmap is there, the roadmap is there, that itself is a big problem. I mean, you're not even trying to accept the changes. If sudden change comes, you're not able to tackle the change. I mean, then you get into a war room, you get into so many meetings, like how we are going to achieve this sprint goal. It is so much of pressure to the team members actually,
absolutely.
because as a scrum master, I am trying to set it up, but from this leadership, you jump from nowhere and you're telling, then we are not, you don't even know the difference between a waterfall and a scrum, right?
Right.
So this is a big interpretation.
Right. So you did mention something which is really brought my memories back about war room. So I happen to work with one of the organization, and every release they has to set up a 10, 12, 13 days of war room in the office. Every release. I was shocked. I was
The
like,
office itself is a war room.
yes, absolutely. Why? So, uh, like, what on earth you guys are doing during the release cycle? How was your sprint going on? You guys really working, or you just doing time pass? Yeah, I used to ask these questions. Yeah, and I was surprised how on earth on every release you are having a war room. So, and it is not like they are fixing a major production bug, or maybe something which is they are recovering a downtime or nothing. They're building a new feature. So, what are you learning during your sprint cycle then? Okay. So, guys, to my audience, guys, if you're watching this episode, this is really eye-opening episode. So keep watching till the end. Ashwini, let's go ahead and the next question. Which agile principle impacts the career growth? So let's talk about the career growth also of a Scrum Master or an Agile coach. So, which agile principles impacts the career growth the most?
So we have this principle number 5. Okay,
Okay,
so building projects around motivated individuals. So
absolutely.
I feel this principle is like very important for Scrum Master, Agile coaches, anyone who is working in an IT industry or even non-IT industry. So any person who needs to be motivated, I mean, he has to be motivated. He or she needs to be motivated. Only then he can grow in the career, which is actually important. Instead of just not a company's or a project's goals, and at the end of the day, it is someone who needs to improve his career path, right? So,
Right,
uh, motivated individuals means it is just not seeing what we get in appraisal, right? So, there is way more beyond that, because appraisals itself is just not having a true meaning.
right,
It is everything is preset and everything it is just decided by management. But at
right,
the end of the day, what is a individual feeling on her or his performance, and
right,
not just any performance, and what he or she is feeling on the career path. So
right.
this is one of the important principle in Agile Manifesto. So
Great.
yeah.
Yeah, so you have added a very valid point here. So these all principles, I'll request all the viewers read through all the principles, understand the perspective, the meaning, real meaning behind it. Try to correlate it with yourself and align it with your career goals. You will really feel the difference once you start aligning it. So in my case, the principle which I often reads and explain to my team is about the real progress or the work is working software. So if one of the principles says that the real progress of a software is a working software. So when I started following these things, I always looked at the stories, how they are building the software, how they are increasing the value into my system, how it is getting benefit my customer. I Instead of chasing the story points, instead of chasing the velocity, I always ask them what changed. or what is the benefit of this story, what is the benefit of this epic. And that's turned the real game for me in my career. So good stories to share. Now let's come back to career growth, stick to career growth, and let's come to interview part also. Many scrum masters, agile coach, they are giving interviews and all that. And still in lot of interviews, questions being asked on agile values and principles, but then why do interviews still test agile principles badly? You know, no one asks about principles, or no one really check whether these principle being understood by this person who is giving the interview.
Because I feel the interviews are not taken by either Scrum Master or Agile coaches.
Hmm.
So the interviews are actually taken by HR manager. The interviews are taken by a project manager, or the interviews are taken by someone who is not even relevant to Scrum.
Agree.
So
Yes.
what they will do,
Hmm.
even in my previous one of the communications of previous interview process, I got a call. So Ashwini, this is a JD. She just read the agile principles. I said, okay. So are you going to take the interview? Yeah. So first I will take your relevance, experience, and everything, and then I will take. And then I asked, what is your role? So I'm the HR, like I'm the hiring manager for this role. It's like, have you done any experience? I mean, do you have a relevant experience? No, no, I
Agree.
just have the JD, so I'll take. Hari. So what happens is they take Scrum Master, Agile coaches for granted. So this is
Right.
a very blunt statement. Okay.
Has
It
to
is
be.
just not the hiring managers, the organizations, they themselves take Scrum Master and Agile coaches for granted. Ashwini, you set up the meeting invite. Ashwini, what you do after this meeting, you send out the minutes of meeting. So basically, I am not from a technical person. I can learn how the flow is there in CI/CD pipeline. I can learn that. But
Right.
for a particular domain, you ask me to send the meeting minutes. How does it even relevant to me?
Okay. Yes.
For that, a technical person should be there. So, okay,
Right.
coming back to the question. So, how does it happen in the interviews? The interviews, they themselves don't know what exactly it is. They come up asking, define velocity, what is burn down chart, and tell me all the four agile manifesto you know. And even after telling this, I don't know how they judge people. Okay, and then you get a mail say, after what is that,
After serious
mindful
consideration.
consideration, you are
Ah.
rejected for this.
Right, right. You rightly mentioned. We have been discussing that the leadership people are not yet coached on agile roles, and yet they are taking interview for agile coaches. Yet they are taking interviews for Scrum Masters. No doubt about their leadership roles and the designations they hold. They have gained the experience and all that. But still, they are not fully aligned to the agility perspective, agile mindset perspective.
Yes.
They're still thinking about the how they are going to increase the revenue, how are they going to help on the budgets and all that. That is not so aligned with the Scrum Masters. Scrum Masters are mainly aligned with people skills, the communication skills, and all that. So that is not being asked in the interview how they are taking ahead the stakeholder management or their risk, handling the risk appetite. All these things yet to be analyzed during the interviews. So that's what I would like to add. Moving on to the next question. What mistakes do leader make while quoting the Agile Manifesto?
Okay, so what they think when the teams are like, okay, maybe the teams are transition from waterfall to agile, and then they think teams are self-organized.
Okay,
So what
yes.
happens if the teams are self-organized? They can decide, a self-organized team member can decide, maybe this story can be completed in this sprint or not. But what leaders think, The team members, they themselves can decide on the roadmap. What is the strategic vision of this project? They think self organized teams can decide this, but that is not the actual uh, motive or a motto of a leadership, right? So, a leadership's goal is to convey what actually is going on with the customer engagement, right? The customer engagement model,
Right.
whatever they have been discussing, the team members will not know. So that communication should happen to the team members. They think the self-organized or the so-called mature teams, they can decide on the roadmap, or but that is not the actual thing, right? Because they are the leadership are the ones who are communicating to the customer. So this gap needs to be fixed.
Right.
Huh.
Good, good. That let's come on to the last question, Ashwini. How can Agile value or build leadership trust? So, for an example, I have become a Scrum Master, become a Agile coach. Now I have to work with leadership. Now I want to use these Agile values to build a trust. How can I do that?
Yeah. So one thing is transparent communication.
Agree.
Okay.
Yes.
So instead of you giving a big message in the teams, that itself is tiresome, right?
Mhm.
Energy draining thing. You can't explain so many things in a message. Just pick up a call or send a meeting invite, discuss, get into the crux of the problem, get into the root cause of the problem. That is where the actual solutioning or actual problem solving happens, right? I mean, the problem has occurred. So how can we fix it, right? Instead of
Right.
just doing the blame game, we have to fix it. So that is one of the important. Transparent communication is very, very important. And apart from that, yeah, the manifesto says working software, right? Instead of, so as we discussed, instead of comparing the velocity, see what actually is working. So yeah, many teams, even till now, like Agile Manifesto has come in 2001 or something. Still,
Right.
we have stories only for development. Even now, I see this is for development, this is for testing. How do you even ship that? Right? That is not a minimum viable product,
Right.
correct? So that planning, so these things should happen, right? A working software is a at the minimum that should happen, right? And then the customer collaboration, which is always we talk about, which is a agile centric, customer centric model is agile model. So think about the customer's shoes. So it is just not the product owner talking. Is the product owner actually talking to the customer and the customer is conveying the same thing? So that we need to know. So these are the basic things that I think we need to know.
Great. Great discussion. Actually, I really liked it because we spoke really, the pain that we are every Scrum Master or Agile coach are facing nowadays. So thank you, Ashwini, for being such a wonderful speaker.
Thank
And
you.
from the entire audience of Agile Exploration, I would like to say thank you once again. And to my audience, if you really like this video, watch, like the video, share your comments, and share it with your friends. I would like to see more comments on this video, more questions to Ashwini. So once again, thank you, Ashwini.
Thanks, Nagesh. Thanks for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, and bye bye.